CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Live from London, this is The World Today.
Hello, I'm Robin Dwyer. Welcome to the programme. Our top stories. Released from house arrest, Gabon's military leaders say deposed President Ali Bongo is free to leave the country. Russia says Washington is committing a criminal act in supplying Ukraine with depleted uranium tank shells. The US Secretary of State says they'll help Kyiv build momentum. China's Belt and Road Initiative turns 10. We're in Madrid to look at how the freight train network has been connecting continents. And a baking US summer as more than 90 million Americans swelter under heat alerts. Gabon's military leaders say deposed President Ali Bongo Ondimba has been freed from house arrest. Bongo was removed from power last month, shortly after being declared the winner of disputed elections that would have seen him extend his 14-year rule as president. The coup has been widely condemned, and military officials were under pressure to release Bongo. He suffered a stroke in 2018, and his health was a concern in the lead-up to the last election.
The Committee for the Transition and Restoration of the Institutions reaffirms that, given his state of health, the former President of the Republic, Ali Bongo Ondimba, is free to move. He can, if he wishes, go abroad for medical checkups.
Russia has called a United States decision to supply Ukraine with weapons that contain depleted uranium a criminal act. It's part of a new aid package announced on Wednesday during a visit to Ukraine by US Secretary of State Antony Blinken. The material is used in tank shells and can pierce heavy armour due to its high density. The move by the Pentagon appears to be a U-turn after it said in March that it wouldn't send depleted uranium munitions to Ukraine. Well, our correspondent Yolo Apdavid is following this story. So why are these weapons controversial?
They're controversial for many reasons, but I think the fact that they are depleted uranium shells, they're not considered nuclear weapons, there's no international treaty to ban the use of them. So as such, they're not illegal. But the Americans have now decided they will send these depleted uranium shells with the 31 Abrams tanks that they have pledged to give to the Ukrainians. So they will be armed with those shells. And that follows what the British government have decided with the Challenger 2 tanks, that they will also give them the shells. Back in March, they decided to send those. And these shells, I suppose, are much debated because of what they can do, the damage they do, in terms of when Ukrainian crews will use them against Russian tanks, they can fire from further away, and it causes huge damage to the artillery and the heavy armour that the Russians will have, and more casualties, of course. Now, depleted uranium is a byproduct of a process to create enriched uranium. And enriched uranium, of course, is used in nuclear fuel and weapons, but it's not as dangerous or as volatile as enriched uranium, and it does radiate some emissions, and that's the dangerous element of it. And the fact that the Ukrainians will want to use them now, they won't refuse any extra ammunition because they keep on asking all the Western countries, NATO allies, they want to have as much shells and ammunition as possible, which is why they've agreed to use cluster ammunition in the last few months when they were donated by the Americans, and the Russians use them as well. And they will also, the Ukrainians would argue, look, we have to push forward in this counter-offensive as well as defend our own people. And only yesterday, on Wednesday, we saw that 17 people died in an attack on civilian areas, and they would point to that as a reason why they should have and receive all these different ammunition when they're offered to them.
So tell us more about what depleted uranium is and whether it can cause harm.
Well, there are several studies into the potential harm, And they have been used before. They've been used in the Gulf War in 1991. They were used in the Iraq invasion in 2003. And they were also used in the former Yugoslavia, in Serbia and Kosovo in 1999. Now, according to the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, it's the radiation hazard and the chemical toxicity of using these which is potentially harmful to human health. And people in Kosovo are actually warned that it may contaminate the soil when they were used there in 1999. I just want to refer quickly to two reports. One is from a journal called Environmental Pollution, and say there may be links between birth defects and when depleted uranium shells were used around the city of Nasiriyah in Iraq. And also last year, the UN Environment Programme said there are concerns, if they are being used, if they will be used in Ukraine, there are concerns about skin irritation, kidney failure, and an increase likely of cancer. So those are the dangers, and that's why it's created such a fierce debate.
Yolo, thank you very much. Our correspondent, Yolo Abdavid. Well, let's head to Russia now and talk to our correspondent, Dasha Chernyshova in Moscow. So, Dasha, we've heard some strong language from Moscow today over this. Tell us more about how Russia has reacted.
Well, Russia has slammed the U.S. decision to supply depleted uranium shells to Ukraine, saying that that was a criminal act and that was inhumane. We have heard the Kremlin referring to the so-called uranium footprint when it comes to the use of these type of shells in Ukraine. Moscow refers to the events in Yugoslavia, saying that after the use of these type of weapons, the numbers of people suffering from cancer has skyrocketed, and this is the fact that has the generational frequency. So Moscow says that it will last for generations, not just for this generation of the Ukrainians, should these type of shells be used even more frequently. We also have heard Moscow saying that the United States do know what the consequences of the use of these type of weapons will be, and it is the obsession of the United States with the idea to defeat Russia strategically on the battlefield that is driving this desire and this decision to supply these depleted uranium shells to Ukraine. So Moscow has been saying very strongly that this is not the right decision, that will have very sad consequences for the Ukrainians. We also have heard Moscow insisting that this, however, will not change the course of the so-called special military operation in Ukraine.
And Dasha, there have been reports of more drone attacks overnight in different parts of Russia. What can you tell us about those?
Oh, that's right. Overnight, we have heard about the attacks by the Ukrainian drones against the Russian capital, with the drone falling in the Ramenskoye district. Another attack has been taking place in Bryansk region. In Rostov, we have heard about 2 drones being intercepted by the Russian air defenses. One fell down outside the city of Rostov, another in downtown city. And we understand the state of emergency has been introduced in the area where the debris of the drone have fallen down. That's where about 99 people, according to the local governor, do live. We understand that several buildings have been damaged as a result of the drone wreckage falling down. We also have heard about another attack taking place in the Russian Volgograd region. So certainly we keep hearing more and more frequently about those drone attacks by the Ukrainian armed forces, and Moscow insists that they are taking place because of the Ukrainian failures on the battlefield. This is the sort of compensation, the cover-up for the failures on the battleground.
Dasha, thank you very much. Our correspondent, Dasha Chernyshova in Moscow. And you can go to our website, cgtn.com/Europe, for an article explaining more about what depleted uranium is, its uses and potential dangers. 2 women will compete for the Mexican presidency next year. The ruling party has named former Mexico City Mayor Claudia Sheinbaum as its candidate. Sheinbaum, who's a 61-year-old scientist by training, will face Xochitl Galvez, an outspoken businesswoman and senator with indigenous roots. One of the 2 will become Mexico's first ever female president. Mexico's Supreme Court has thrown out all federal criminal penalties for abortion, ruling that laws prohibiting the procedure were unconstitutional and violated women's rights. The decision makes the country the latest in Latin America to make abortion more available. The ruling will require the Federal Public Health Service and all federal health institutions to offer abortion to anyone who requests it. Sudan's army chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan is in Qatar for talks with the country's emir. It's Burhan's 3rd international trip since fighting broke out between Sudan's military and a rival paramilitary force in April. The conflict was sparked by long-simmering tensions over the integration of both forces in a transition to democracy. Both sides have denied responsibility for strikes that have killed hundreds of civilians. Planned strike action at 2 liquefied natural gas facilities in Australia has been delayed as talks between Chevron and unions continue. A series of work stoppages over paying conditions were due to start on Thursday. Australia is the world's biggest LNG exporter. The ongoing dispute has stoked volatility in natural gas markets. Thursday marks the 10th anniversary of China's Belt and Road Initiative, a framework connecting countries around the world through infrastructure development, trade and cultural exchanges. China's Foreign Ministry says more than 90 countries have confirmed their participation in the 3rd Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation, scheduled for October in Beijing. To better understand this global mega-project, we can break it down into 2 parts. First, the Belt. Overland transport links across China to Central Asia and Europe. And then a maritime road of shipping lanes connecting ports. It reaches all the way to the Mediterranean and Africa. As of June this year, China had signed cooperation agreements with 152 countries and 32 international organisations. That involves more than 60% of the world's population and nearly a third of the world's GDP. The Belt and Road Initiative focuses on 5 key areas: policy, infrastructure, trade, finance and cultural exchanges. Europe is an important part of this network, with 27 countries in the region participating. China has helped build or invest in key infrastructure projects in Europe, including Greece's Piraeus port, Croatia's Pelješac bridge and a major rail route connecting Serbia and Hungary. The Belt and Road Initiatives also help to boost connectivity in Europe through a freight rail network. This trade artery has now reached 216 cities in 25 countries. And by June, more than 73,000 freight train trips had transported more than 6.9 million shipping containers. Spain is a major destination along this freight rail network, and our correspondent Ken Brown is at a train station in Madrid. So, Ken, what products does the freight train carry between China and Spain?
Well, Robin, right here behind me, this is where the train leaving from Madrid all the way to EU departs and arrives. It's the longest cargo train route on the planet. It goes 13,000 kilometers through France, Germany, Poland, Russia and Kazakhstan on its way to the EU in the Zhejiang province near Shanghai. Now, the products from the Spanish side are very much on the agri-food side here. One of the places that Spain's economy is strongest. We see things like wine, olive oil, Iberian ham and sparkling water, for example. Now, in April, the Spanish Prime Minister, acting Prime Minister right now, Pedro Sanchez, was in China and he signed new deals, for example, with 50,000 tons of almonds set to be heading to China. So very strong in the agri-food business. Now, we've prepared this report for you on one example of a product that goes all the way from here to China. Let's have a look at that now.
Volcanic water vaporized by lava and filtered through the earth over 10,000 years. So rich in minerals and medicinal properties that the Catalan locals swear by it, and even the Romans bathed in it. It's now available in China too, quenching a thirst for high-end products among China's burgeoning middle class. Vichy Catalan's unique products take a unique route too, a cargo train that travels all the way from Spain to China. The Madrid EU train journey takes just 21 days, much faster than the 6-week sea passage, and is more environmentally friendly too.
Vichy Catalan is a company committed to the sustainability. The train is much more sustainable and produces a lot less CO2 emissions to atmosphere than boats, than big boats that transport containers. The product is mainly much more controlled in a train, and the movement of the train is much better than a boat.
The Madrid EU train is an emblematic example of China's Belt and Road Initiative. An event celebrating 50 years of official diplomatic relations in Madrid brought together many of those responsible for the trains that travel from China to the European Union. Among them was Feng Xiubin, chairman of EU Rail, who has played a pivotal role.
I think at the core of the Belt and Road Initiative, we are creating a community that provides solutions and helps build a better future for everyone. We help transport wine, olive oil and water produced in Spain to China for sale in the Chinese market. If you go to Yiwu, you will find Spanish and European products everywhere in this import market in Yiwu.
Agreements have been reached on agri-food produce between China and Spain that will allow huge quantities of Spanish goods to be sold on the Chinese market. A sign that China is allowing better access for European products, an opportunity to address the large trade imbalance that exists.
Spain now buys more from China than it does from any other country and is aiming at a more reciprocal relationship, with companies like Vichy Catalan hoping to scale up their exports. With Spanish products sparkling in China, the future of bilateral trade looks bright.
So as you can see, the benefits of the train are that it's much quicker, just 21 days to get from EU to Madrid, from Madrid to EU. That boosts trade, allows a beneficial mutual relationship. Bilateral trade between Spain and China stands at over $50 billion. The other benefit, as we heard, is that it's much less polluting. And of course, there's a bright future here for BRI. While Spain is not one of the countries that has signed up for BRI, Morocco, its neighbour, has. And we're already seeing talks about a train going from Spain to Morocco, connecting Europe and Africa. And that's what BRI is all about, connecting continents and fomenting trade worldwide.
Ken Brown in Madrid, thank you very much. You're watching CGTN. Still ahead. Schools close in parts of the United States due to extreme heat. We're in New York next.
Ever wondered what's the difference between a bear and a bull market? Where are the cash cows? And who are the lame ducks? And what exactly are black swans? Grey rhinos? And unicorn companies? Make sense of it all with Global Business, only on CGTN.
There's a new agenda for a new world, accelerating change in almost every part of our lives. It's shifting the norms of how we work, travel, and connect. How we think, interact, and develop. It's a new reality, a new agenda with me, Juliette Mann.
We're going on a journey round some of the most spectacular parts of Europe to witness how two ancient cultures are collaborating to create a new, clean, green energy system. And hear how working together on green energy could help build trust between China and Europe.
If we keep our relationships strong, if we have strong exchanges, China's role will be key and very important for European Union energy transition.
Welcome back. A reminder of our headlines. Released from house arrest, Gabon's military leaders say deposed President Ali Bongo is free to leave the country. Russia says Washington is committing a criminal act in supplying Ukraine with depleted uranium tank shells. The US Secretary of State says they'll help Kyiv build momentum. And China's Belt and Road Initiative turns 10 as 90 countries confirm they'll be at next month's BRI Forum. It's the first full week of autumn in the United States, but there's an intense heat wave across large parts of the country. More than 90 million Americans are under heat alerts, with temperatures soaring to record highs in some areas. The heat wave began on Saturday over the central states and has expanded into the mid-Atlantic and the northeast. Schools in some cities have closed because of the extreme weather. Well, our correspondent John Terrett is in New York. So, John, pretty unbearable weather there for September.
Robin, you know, it is only 10 in the morning and I could do with a cold beer. That's how bad it is. I've never known it to be this warm. I've lived in New York for 21 years this November. And although we've done heat stories on this program in the past, really, this is incredible. And part of the problem with New York City is not only are we getting heat from the sun, which is relentless, but we suffer from incredible humidity here in this city. Now, nobody knows this until they actually live here. If you come on holiday, it's often not immediately evident to you. You've got to live here to realize. And the reason we have so much humidity is because we're completely surrounded by water, by the Hudson River over there, the East River over there, and the Atlantic Ocean just to our east as well. So humidity is really the problem. And listen to these temperatures. I mean, these are record-breaking temperatures, okay? So last night, it never fell below 80 Fahrenheit. All right, now the Americans deal in Fahrenheit, so I'll convert that for you, 27 Celsius. My home in the suburbs, 79 when I woke up this morning, Fahrenheit, that's 26 Celsius. Today the forecast is for well above 90, so that's well above 32 Celsius, and the heat index for the city is between 37 and 40 Celsius, so that's well into the 100 plus Fahrenheit. There is an official heat wave going on now. That ends tonight in the suburbs, but will continue until tomorrow night, Friday, in the city. And normally, what's odd about this, what is newsworthy about this, is that normally we get to Labor Day, which was Monday, which is a major last public holiday of the season. And honestly, I kid you not, normally the weather changes like that. The kids go back to school, the rain comes in, it gets cold almost the very next day. And this year, it really has done the complete opposite. People are talking about this being the first heat wave of next summer, which is how it's being billed here. And of course, those that are suffering most, I think, are the kids who did go back to school on Tuesday and who immediately from Tuesday onwards were sent home early, and all sports activities and any kind of exertion has been cancelled by the schools. And the reason for that is that most schools don't have air conditioning. These buildings all have air conditioning, but schools don't. They have fans, but they don't have proper air conditioning in most cases, which is why the kids are being sent home early. Robin?
So you're all sweltering in New York, but you're not alone, are you? This is affecting much of the rest of the country.
It's the endless summer of 2023. 80 million, I think you said 90 million, probably you're right, 90 million people affected. It started back in May, actually, and worked its way across from the west into the south, and now it's kind of finishing off the summer here in the east. This particular heat wave, you're quite right, got underway last weekend. Of course, it's been responsible, we're told, for the Alberta wildfires in Canada. They've had more than 400 this year, but not the normal 200. We can still see the smoke in the air high up here from those fires, which are still burning. The good news is cooler air is slowly making its way down from the west into the south. It will eventually come here. And the forecast for tonight and tomorrow is thunderstorms. So that should break up some of this. But I'm not sure about the humidity. I think the humidity, which is the killer really, is likely to last throughout the weekend. So we're looking forward to next week here already.
Well, John, I can't endorse your idea for a cold beer, but do stay cool out there. That's our correspondent, John Terrett in New York. The White House has scrapped controversial oil leases in an Alaskan wildlife reserve. The leases were awarded during the final days of the Trump administration. The move is part of an effort by President Joe Biden's government to clamp down on Arctic drilling and protect a 7.9 million hectare Arctic refuge for polar bears and reindeer. The US legal watchdog has filed a lawsuit to remove Donald Trump from the Republican primary ballot in Colorado. It argues that the Capitol Hill attack means he's ineligible to run for the White House again due to a clause in the Constitution aimed at candidates who have supported an insurrection. The lawsuit means similar cases could be filed in other states and is likely to unsettle an already troubled campaign, with Trump facing 4 separate criminal cases. A manhunt is continuing for a British soldier awaiting trial on terror-related charges who escaped from a prison in southwest London. Police said Daniel Abed Khalifa, who has been accused of planting fake bombs at a military base and of violating Britain's Official Secrets Act, went missing from Wandsworth Prison on Wednesday. There's been no official explanation of how he escaped. Khalifa has denied all the charges against him. The UK is rejoining the European Union's flagship Horizon Science Research Programme. British scientists can once again apply for grants from the $105 billion scheme. The deal ends a 3-year post-Brexit standoff with the EU over science funding and is seen as another important reset in relations between Europe and the UK. Britain will also rejoin the EU's Copernicus Earth Observation Satellite programme. With not long to go until the Hangzhou Asian Games, athletes taking part are making their final preparations. They include Saudi Arabia's under-23 men's football squad. The team heads to China at a time when their country's domestic league is drawing worldwide attention. Our correspondent Adel El-Marouki reports.
In Saudi Arabia's Abha city, the Greens held their last open training to the public. They will then go into a closed intensive camp as the under-23 national team finalizes their preparations for the Asian Games in China's Hangzhou city.
We are very happy to be travelling to China for this competition. We're preparing for the World Cup qualification, which is the best preparation for the Asian Games, and God willing, we'll be ready for the competition. All national teams in Asia have greatly developed in recent years. In this competition, I expect to see exceptional performances.
The Saudis have been drawn with continental football heavyweights Iran and Vietnam and may have an easier encounter against Mongolia. After brokering a diplomatic breakthrough between the two countries, China will once again bring Saudi Arabia and Iran together. This time it will be for the opening match of Group B on September 19.
We are very well prepared technically and mentally. Our ambition is to make Saudi Arabia appear at its best and reach the final. We are facing big football nations which we respect. Our group is very difficult. We hope to be strong against them.
These athletes have started playing with or against some of the world's most popular football stars in the domestic league. Saudi clubs have signed with players like Cristiano Ronaldo and Karim Benzema, a plan that hopes to boost the skills of Saudi players.
Saudi football is becoming much more competitive. There is a positive development that came with our daily training with international players who played in the Championships League during the previous year of the one before. This develops Saudi players and makes our national team stronger.
Throughout its history in the Asian Games, Saudi Arabia stood only twice on the football podium, to win 1 bronze and 1 silver medal in the 1982 and 86 Games. In the last 2 editions, the under-23 was knocked out of the quarterfinals, yet they aim to reach the final this year. Adel El-Marouki, CGTN.
And finally, the piano that Freddie Mercury used to compose Bohemian Rhapsody and some of Queen's other hits has sold at auction for over $2 million. Hundreds of the late singer's personal possessions are on offer at a 6-day auction in London. The opening night raked in over $15 million. Lots included the graffiti-covered door to Mercury's house, while a silver snake bangle that he wore in the Bohemian Rhapsody video went for almost $900,000, far exceeding the estimate of $11,000. The headlines again. Released from house arrest, Gabon's military leaders say deposed President Ali Bongo is free to leave the country. China's Belt and Road Initiative turns 10 as 90 countries confirm they'll be at next month's BRI Forum. And a baking US summer as more than 90 million Americans swelter under heat alerts. And that is the world today. Thanks for watching. We're back with more news at the top of the hour. Coming up next, it's World Insight. For now, from all of the team in London, it's goodbye.